Well, hello and welcome back to the Lamppost Listener. My name is Daniel.
I'm Phil.
And this is a podcast where we usually journey chapter by chapter through C.S. Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia. But today we are celebrating the first annual C.S. Lewis Reading Day.
And in honor of that, we're going to hop around the Chronicles of Narnia.
Oh, I didn't know if that's more like an Easter joke or something, but
that would be really good.
This is...
I hope someone listens to this.
On Easter,
right?
Of course, right? This is funny because so much of what you and I do is relatively kind of outside of time.
Wow.
That sounds really weird to say it like that. But like you can listen to the episodes really whenever you want to. But this one is particular. You can obviously listen to this whenever, but it is particular to this exact date because here on November the 29th, 2023, it is the 125th anniversary of Lewis's birth. He was born on this day in 1898.
Wow.
And I think my math is right.
Yep. Sounds right.
Well, Phil, before we dive into today's activities, I would be remiss not to mention that while C.S. Lewis Reading Day has been a collective effort, it really has been the brainchild of Mr. David Bates over at Pints with Jack, who really was born a little bit of jealousy that Tolkien gets to do, the Tolkien community gets to do this all the time, and then here we are in the Lewis community kind of twiddling our thumbs. And so David really set this thing up and has done a great job. So
I've always wondered who sets things up like this, and now that we've met David a couple of times and interacted with him, I now understand
like it's
who
these kind of people. Yep. And we mean that in the best possible way.
Yeah, very driven, very organized, and very much a hyper connector. He connects a lot of people together.
Speaking of connecting lots of people, later tonight, if you're listening to this in the morning, later tonight, got a live stream going on. I'll be on the East Coast panel, but there's also a West Coast panel of a bunch of different people in the Lewis community. Going to be a really great time. Both are things you don't want to miss. So if you're still hearing this right when it comes out, go ahead and find that and come listen and join us as we talk through. I will just give a little bit of, and maybe we'll talk about this on the Dancing Lawn in the future, something, a little bit of a breadcrumb as to what I want to talk about on this live panel. One of the questions that we're going to go over is chronological and publication order, which might seem like a boring question to ask a bunch of people who really like Lewis, because the answer is obviously publication order, except I need to admit to you, Phil, that in the last year, I was given the charge to rework some of our lower school curriculum at the school that I work at. And we now have between 3rd and 6th grade, all of our students read all 7 books. And I was working through how we were going to introduce them. And we did not, and I say I did not choose publication order. And I also did not choose chronological order. So we are reading them in a different order. Like every student who goes through this school now will read, well, unless they read them at home or something, but the way that we have it set up is different. And I'm going to defend that choice a little bit.
Interesting.
Which will be fun.
I've heard it before.
I told you before. I had to tell you.
It had something to do. You don't say the whole thing.
I won't.
Say it for the live stream, but it had something to do with doing 2 books each year, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, it makes sense. For that particular situation.
Having spent the last 5 years reading through these books very, very slowly, I think honestly it's made me care a little bit less about the reading order, honestly. There's a few books that I think you have to read in a particular order, but some other books I think it doesn't matter. But that's all I'll say. So come check that out. Come join us tonight on the live stream. Phil, also before we dive into Lewis's words, which is what we're going to be spending most of today doing, I also want to remind listeners that we're having some giveaways through our new newsletter. So if you head on over to lamppostlistener.com, you can sign up for our newsletter and be put into a drawing for either a C.S. Lewis print or a C.S. Lewis candle. And that's from Our Church Speaks and from Inkling Candles. And then on top of that, anyone can head over to the link in this episode's description, bonfire.com. We are selling a C.S. Lewis t-shirt that you illustrated.
That's right. It's available for the next few days.
Yes.
and it was really fun to make.
Yeah, it's really great. Some of my favorite work you've done for the show. I think with some of the excitement that's been around the shirt, maybe we'll have to do more of these in the future. Maybe one for maybe when we end in just a few weeks or something. Who knows? Yeah. We'll see.
Maybe a Lamppost listener specific shirt to commemorate this first round of books that we did.
Yeah, exciting stuff. Well, let's now turn, Phil, to these 7 books in the Chronicles of Narnia. You and I are going to share some of our favorite passages from these books. I took the odd books. You have the even books. We're going to go through them, publication order, and not share reflections, not actually talk a lot ourselves about them. We've done that for entire seasons anyway. But we want to read them and just let listeners sit with these words. A big part of a reading day like this is celebrating an author, but also actually reading an author. Mm-hmm. And in that very short self-destructing episode that I sent out last week, one of my encouragements to listeners was simply to plan out just a time, even if it's 15, only 20 minutes, to sit and read some of your favorite parts of Lewis, to just remember the beauty in those words and the beauty in that prose. So, Phil,
you gave them a mission should they choose to accept it.
What's funny is
you should have done that.
That
it's going to self-destruct.
That episode when I put it into into Libsyn, where we host all of our podcast stuff at. I didn't know you could do this because we've never done this before. I couldn't say this episode, when will it no longer be available? So I just put it in there for a week. And so and then it was gone. I didn't know you could do that.
That's cool.
I'm glad that I haven't accidentally done that for any of our other episodes. Hey, where's this episode at?
Self-devouring podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, it used to be you had to put a little explosive in the cassette tape to make sure that people wouldn't listen to it after Ethan listened to it.
Well, Phil, I have to admit that I didn't actually follow my own rules that I gave us for C.S. Lewis Reading Day.
Shocker.
Yeah, I did pick out, like I said, I did pick out some of my favorite lines, but I actually did 2 for each book.
Oh. Well, I feel less bad about doing multiple for mine.
So for what I want to share, and I guess we'll start here with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And for all of the books that I've chosen, I have one scene of dialogue and one scene of maybe more descriptive prose. And I think this highlights what the Chronicles do so well, which is through Lewis's writing, we have great characters and great moments and great conversations. And that makes up such a large portion of the Chronicles. But we also have long, beautiful descriptions of the landscape. We have really intriguing looks into the minds of certain characters. I mean, here we are finishing the last battle in our regular season, and those last few chapters where we see Lewis describe the destruction of Narnia and the whole journey further up and further in. Wow, there's barely any talking in those last few chapters, and yet they're still so beautiful. So, with that in mind, I wanted to start with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And, I mean, many of these are not going to be shockers. They're things that I thought, well, is it cliche to pick these lines? And then I thought, no, it's the first C.S. Lewis Reading Day, so I want to pick the things that should make it into the very first C.S. Lewis Reading Day. So this comes from Chapter 8 of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, What Happened After Dinner. Is he a man? Asked Lucy.
Aslan a man?
Said Mr. Beaver sternly.
Oh, certainly not. I tell you, he is the king of the wood and the son of the great emperor beyond the sea. Don't you know who is the king of beasts? Aslan is a lion, the lion, the great lion.
Ooh, said Susan. I thought he was a man. Is he quite safe? I shall feel rather nervous about meeting a lion. Oh, that you will, dearie, and no mistake, said Mrs. Beaver. If there's anyone who can appear before Aslan without their knees knocking, they're either braver than most or else just silly. Oh, then he isn't safe, said Lucy.
Safe?
Said Mr. Beaver.
Don't you hear what Mrs. Beaver tells you? Who said anything about safe? Course he isn't safe, but he's good. He's the king, I tell you.
I assume that you remember this scene pretty well.
Oh, very much. This may be because we've both been watching a little more baseball recently. But I
have no idea where this is going. Please continue.
I'm excited to share it with you then. I'm imagining that Mr. Beaver is an umpire. And they're asking whether or not Aslan, who just stole second, is safe. And he's like, no, of course he's not safe.
But he's good?
He's good.
Oh,
this is why we shouldn't record this late at night. We're both loopy.
I wish I had a nickel for the amount of times, especially with young readers, that I've used this particular scene, even when I'm not teaching wardrobe, which I have done many times, but even when I'm not teaching this, where I'm able to help students get a better picture of who God is and the actual power, or at least our ability to comprehend his actual power and magnificence and omnipotence. And I think something like this simple acknowledgement of he is not safe, is just something that is frightening in that good kind of way. That idea, when you're first trying to introduce to maybe someone who's younger in the faith, of this idea of actually the fear of God is a good thing. We always think of fear, right, as being a bad thing. It's like, no, there actually should be a fear of God. That shows a better understanding of who God is. If you don't have a fear of God, then you probably don't actually have a great understanding of who God is. And Lewis just throws it in this conversation with so effortlessly. Well, Phil, I also picked one line, and again, I kind of cheated here because this isn't in the actual book, but I also wanted to read the dedication to the line, "The Witch and the Wardrobe," which I really do think sets up really everything that comes afterward. Here's what Lewis writes at the very beginning of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. "My dear Lucy, I wrote this story for you, but when I began it, I had not realized that girls grow quicker than books. As a result, you are already too old for fairy tales, and by the time it is printed and bound, you will be older still. But someday, you will be old enough to start reading fairy tales again. You can then take it down from some upper shelf, dust it, and tell me what you think of it. I shall probably be too deaf to hear and too old to understand a word you say, but I shall still be your affectionate godfather, C.S. Lewis."
It shouldn't be surprising at this point that he's such a good writer, but that is an incredible dedication. Oh, I love that so much.
I don't think we talked about this when we first introduced the book. I mean, who knows what we talked about back in season 1, but I don't know. Maybe we never brought this up. It'd be hard to believe that we didn't, but we were doing like 20-minute episodes back then, so maybe we did. Lewis's humility that comes across here, this kind of laughing at himself just a little bit, right? But even the humility that comes in the middle of the dedication, which is, I did not realize or at the very beginning, I did not realize that girls grow quicker than books. Even that has this like humble kind of piece to it of, I didn't realize this. I actually don't have all this wisdom. There is some ignorance on my part in a very like Socratic type of way. And I love that that's how, again, Lewis, when he's writing this dedication, is already a famous author. He's already a well-known academic. And he writes this as if I'm just somebody's, old godfather. I love that that's the humility that Lewis puts on display for us.
And at the same time, demonstrating an incredible amount of knowledge and wisdom, in that he knows that there's an age for reading fairy tales, and then there's a period of not reading fairy tales, and then it comes back. And I feel like, in a way, that's the space we're in right now, where we both read a lot of fun fantasy stuff, and then we went into a different area of reading, but now we're at the beginning of coming back to it.
We can go back into talking about bicycles if you want to. I can't stop, so I won't do it. We've spent so much time doing it, and I want to keep doing it the next season too. So, but yeah, I mean, that whole idea of re-enchantment, I mean, that is what Lewis is talking about here, being re-enchanted. And it doesn't mean that those fairy tales from before are bad. It means that they're almost now more complete as you become older. You'll be old enough to begin reading fairy tales again, start reading fairy tales again. Well, there's wardrobe fill. You had Caspian.
I had Caspian. This is from roughly 42% into Prince Caspian.
All right.
Just a guess.
Oh, do you want me to try to guess?
Yeah.
Well, my wife did give you some tips before.
We're going to be completely honest about.
No. No. I just meant she gave you her insight. Anna has been reading through Caspian recently, and she said, "Oh, you should do this one." So I don't know if you did this one.
That is exactly what I chose.
Okay,
it was a really good recommendation.
Well, then I won't guess then.
This is from an interaction with Caspian and Trumpkin, and Caspian has just said, "But I thought you didn't believe in the horn, Trumpkin." And Trumpkin's response is, "No more I do, your majesty. But what's that got to do with it? I might as well die on a wild goose chase as die here. You are my king. I know the difference between giving advice and taking orders. You've had my advice, and now it's time for orders."
Is this occurring during the flashback? Is this in chapter 6? Is that right? Is this chapter 6 of the book?
There's no easy way to... I wasn't prepared for that question. Let's see. Chapter 7.
Chapter 7. Okay.
I miss physical books.
We only have but so many copies in this house, right? Yeah. It's not like there isn't one in almost every room.
You could throw a LaCroix and hit too.
Wow, I love that line. Trumpkin, what a wonderful character that Lewis created. A character that really goes... I mean, you have so many books. I mean, what's funny is I think sometimes Trumpkin gets overshadowed by Eustace, even though they're not in the same... I guess they are together in Silverchair for a short bit of time. But Trumpkin goes through a similar path, maybe just a little bit less flamboyantly so than Eustace, where he goes from this very unlikable, grumpy, annoying character into a true believer. But he, unlike Eustace, he does have that wisdom. He has that experience, that age. He's got this gruffness to him. And so these lines could really only come from Trumpkin.
Yep. I've found that this is a really useful way of approaching authority.
Okay.
Especially in a situation where you need to have a clear leader. For example, it's a little different with this podcast because I think you and I both lead in different ways, in different pieces.
I mean, I let you think that.
Right, yeah, exactly. But in a maybe a work setting or maybe a higher stress, I imagine a higher stress thing like wartime would be where Lewis kind of came up.
Higher stress than podcasting with me?
Yeah. About the same. I have found myself using this at work where I make it clear, like, hey, here's what I think, but you are the boss. And so whatever your decision is on this, that's what we'll go with. But I think it's important to know this information. And it's that balance of communicating and trying to be understood, but also you don't dig your heels in because there may be information that you don't have.
Yeah.
And in this case, there's information that Trumpkin doesn't have either.
Well, and Lewis talks quite a bit about hierarchy and the importance of hierarchy. I think too, his essay on equality or some of his stuff in The Discarded Image or medieval and Renaissance literature, where he talks about one of the things that was really good about the medieval world is they understood hierarchy. I'm not talking even like societal hierarchy or some like aristocracy or something. Although Lewis sometimes said that, we really shouldn't throw out the baby with the bathwater with that. But Lewis often talked about even the hierarchy we see in something like the medieval heavens or that we see in the structure of medieval life. And one of the things I think that he would probably, not to put words in his mouth on C.S. Lewis reading day here, but I think from a character like Trumpkin understands that hierarchy of the monarch. It is Caspian's decision to make. You've given your thoughts, and now it's time to get in line.
There's also a implied responsibility when that happens. So the leader is now responsible for the decision because they have a group who is willing to go along with their decision. So they don't have to deal with any of the group's resistance, or in this case, Trumpkin's resistance. Whatever they decide is what they're going to do. And there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that. And it's something I think about in my marriage, where if I'm the leader of the household, it doesn't mean whatever I say goes. It means there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that decision. Because in a tie break, we're going to go to that. But there's a burden with that.
That's actually the exact example that Lewis gives in Mere Christianity.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I didn't know
That's
that
probably
you were
where I
doing
got
on
it from,
purpose.
actually.
Well, let's keep traveling now to Dawn. Nice use of verbs, unintendedly by me, of traveling here. Let's voyage along aboard the Dawn Treader. And in the Dawn Treader, we have some of my favorite interactions, favorite descriptions. I knew exactly what I was going to choose here when it came to a conversation, but had a harder time deciding what part of descriptive prose do I want to pick. Do you want to try to guess what conversation I chose here from Dawn Treader? I mentioned it not too long ago in chapter 13 when we had Andrew on the show.
I don't know if I'm going to remember that. I was just assuming it had something to do with Reepicheep.
It has nothing to do with Reepicheep. Sorry.
Yep.
This comes from chapter 14 of The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. It's between a conversation with Ramondu and the rest of the crew from the Dawn Treader. "I saw them long ago," said the old man, "but it was from a great height. I cannot tell you such things as sailors need to know." "Do you mean you were flying in the air?" Eustace blurted out. "I was a long way above the air, my son," replied the old man. "I am Ramondu, but I see that you stare at one another and have not heard this name. And no wonder, for the days when I was a star had ceased long before any of you knew this world, and all the constellations have changed." "Golly," said Edmund under his breath, "he's a retired star." "Aren't you a star any longer?" asked Lucy. "I am a star at rest, my daughter," answered Ramondu. "When I set for the last time, decrepit and old beyond all that you can reckon, I was carried to this island. I am not so old now as I was then. Every morning a bird brings me a fireberry from the valleys in the sun, and each fireberry takes away a little of my age. And when I have become as young as the child that was born yesterday, then I shall take my rising again, for we are at Earth's eastern rim, and once more tread the great dance." "In our world," said Eustace, "a star is a huge ball of flaming gas." "Even in your world, my son, that is not what a star is, but only what it is made of. And in this world you have already met a star, for I think you have been with Koryakin."
I love the grand way that he's speaking, and then the contrast with the more baseline scientific interruption. It's just really enjoyable.
I mean, so I love this idea of that Lewis throws out there of, no, that's not what the star is, obviously, only what it's made of. And we talked about this just recently, as I mentioned in chapter 13 of Last Battle, as the dwarves, even though the truth is available to all 5 of their faculties, they cannot comprehend it, right? They just can't do it. Any kind of metaphysical truth is gone. And we don't need to have that whole conversation again. But there's that beautiful thing. There are also just some of the fun stuff that you can't help but love about Narnia, unless you're Tolkien, and then you probably hate it. But the whole Ramondu being, or is it Ramondu?
Well, you've already said Ramondu.
Which one did I say? Oh man, we did a whole season of this already.
You've been saying Ramondu.
Okay,
But the whole season you said Ramondu.
oh buddy, Well, you know what? Whatever.
Par for the course.
We're leaving these books behind soon. It's okay.
You make up words, you get made up pronunciations, all right?
Yeah, he needs to put them in the back of his book. Here's how you pronounce these words for Daniel, because he
Right.
won't be able to do it.
You know, some authors have an entire set of appendices.
Yeah, to do this for you.
And how does it pronounce everything?
Well, regardless, he says, I get these fire berries from the valley and the sun. So you have that connection to the sun as the medieval heaven. But then the fireberry taking away its age, we also know, it's right before this, we know that one's like planted in his mouth, like the seagull not the seagull, but the bird like feeds him like a mother bird to a baby bird. Mm-hmm. And this is the kind of ridiculousness that exists in Narnia, but is so enjoyable. It's so fun, right?
Yeah.
We don't get any answers to what's going on here. I bet you if you were to ask Lewis what exactly is happening, he wouldn't have a great answer either.
Yeah.
Right? And not in I don't know, I don't care, but just, no, I'm more focused on the atmosphere here than I am on the world building element. And that's always been the case with Narnia. It's always been atmosphere. It's not that there isn't world building, but Lewis consistently chooses the atmosphere of the story over, right, the actual world building. And when we had Jason Baxter on the show earlier this season, we talked about how Lewis said that atmosphere is so important in literature. And this particular selection, I think, really shows that.
It's just a different amount of suspension of disbelief.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, it all fits together. We've already had Father Christmas show up, so why not have a star that eats fireberries?
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of atmosphere, the other paragraph I've chosen here comes from the very end, chapter 16 of Dawn Treader. I actually don't have much commentary for it, other than I want to read it and just enjoy it. This comes from the travels at the very end of the world. After that, for many days, without wind in her shrouds or foam at her bows, across a waveless sea, the Dawn Treader glided smoothly east. Every day and every hour, the light became more brilliant, and still they could bear it. No one ate or slept, and no one wanted to, but they drew buckets of dazzling water from the sea, stronger than wine and somehow wetter, more liquid than ordinary water, and pledged one another silently in deep draughts of it. And one or two of the sailors, who had been oldish men when the voyage began, now grew younger every day. Everyone on board was filled with joy and excitement, but not an excitement that made one talk. The further they sailed, the less they spoke, and then, almost in a whisper, the stillness of that last sea laid hold on them.
Wow. Was that the very end?
That is at the beginning of the last chapter.
The last chapter.
You really feel that it just feels otherworldly.
It really does.
Well, let's keep going on. Let's go to Silver Chair here. What do you got for us?
All right. I'm going to go ahead and make sure I know what chapter this is from, because I know you're going to ask. This is from chapter 10 of the Silver Chair.
Chapter 10. Let's see if I can remember what's happening there. Is this travels without a sun, travels under the sun?
Please hold. Yes, travels without the sun.
Travels without the sun. You read these enough times, and it's just the chapter titles start getting in your head.
Well, one of the things that made us both want to do a podcast together is we realized that we both have a knack for knowing the year that a movie came out.
Sure.
And it's funny.
Even if I've never seen the movie.
Right. It's just you see the movie with the year next to it, because you can have multiple movies with the same title. And so they always put the year in parentheses next to it when they're referring to it. And I think that we just pick up on that. Mm-hmm. And we may be off by a year, but we almost always can peg it to a certain time.
Are you going to just sit here and hilariously share with us that many go down to the sunless realm but few return?
I have highlighted every time that it's mentioned. I'm going to read them all to you.
Okay.
No, this is... I'll read it out of context first. Maybe you can provide the context.
Okay.
But this is Puddleglum. "Don't you mind him," said Puddleglum. there are no accidents. Our guide is Aslan, and he was there when the giant king caused the letters to be cut, and he knew already all things that would come of them, including this.
Yeah, I remember this scene. This is the knight, I believe, speaking to obviously Jill, Eustace, and Puddleglum after, I believe it's the knight that reveals, hey, those words under me that you thought you saw, that you think Aslan has told you, no, there's actually some deeper truth beneath that. We've uncovered, maybe using the scientific method, we've uncovered something through not scientific method, but archaeology that proves your thing wrong. And really, it's something like I had lived the earth all under me, or something like that, right? And Puddleglum's response here is just, yeah, no, Aslan knew that too. Like when we say that he's omniscient, we mean omniscient.
Yeah,
all
knowing. Very shrewd, frog face.
Is that what he says?
Said the knight. That's what the knight says.
Very shrewd frog face.
Clapping Puddleglum on the shoulder and laughing again, and you have hit the truth. Yeah, but the knight is still under the influence of the lady in the green.
Yeah, it's obviously it's really, and this is him under this spell.
Well, I'm more explaining why he would say very shrewd frog face.
Oh yeah, why he's just like throwing.
He's in a different
this,
personality.
Hey man, you can't talk like that. That's really not okay. Oh man, I really missed Puddleglum. What a joy he was. Are you sad that of all the characters that we've gotten to meet throughout Lewis's Chronicles, there's some characters, even like Trumpkin, he appears in 2 books. He's name-checked in a 3rd book, right? Are you sad?
Name dropped?
Yeah, exactly. Are you sad that we'd never see we really only see Puddleglum in 1 book?
Honestly, I prefer it.
You think so? Okay.
I think it's nice to have a character that you see once and doesn't come back. It makes it even more special. When you start finding out more about a character, they do a prequel or they.
Well, I'm not asking for that.
Right, but whenever they're mentioned in multiple places, it dilutes it a little bit, and that can be done for the service of the story, and it's totally fine. But in this case, for this character, I'm glad that he is.
You didn't want them to get to, as they're going further up and further in, to have like Puddleglum come down, and be like, no, this is still awful. I hate it. Or the opposite, where he's like comes in writing puzzles, like, this is great. Everything's wonderful. Finally.
Yeah. Hey, remember me from the other book, right?
He's holding his. Because remember, he gets really drunk in the. I didn't know if that was another thing you were going to pick, was some of his stuff in the House of Harfang, where he's a respectable.
Respectable, yeah. Should have.
Well, let's keep going on to The Horse and His Boy. I had the hardest time with this one, and it is most likely simply because it's the only book I've read once. I read it through the one time. I guess technically I read it through like 3 times, but it was 3 chapters at a time, so it doesn't really count. Here we go. I have chosen this. I actually don't remember what chapter this is from. It must be near the end of the book, because it is a conversation between Hwin and Aslan. For just as he said the word whiskers, one of Aslan's had actually tickled his ear. This is speaking of Bree. Bree shot away like an arrow to the other side of the enclosure, and there turned. The wall was too high for him to jump, and he could fly no farther. Aravis and Hwin both started back. There was about a second of intense silence, and then Hwin, though shaking all over, gave a strange little neigh and trotted across to the lion. "Please," she said, "you're so beautiful. You may eat me if you like. I'd sooner be eaten by you than be fed by anyone else." "Dearest daughter," said Aslan, painting a lion's kiss on her twitching velvet nose, "I knew you would not be long in coming to me. Joy shall be yours." I'd sooner be eaten by you than fed by anyone else. If that's not kind of the zeal and the joy, right, that Lewis desires for us to know about what it means to love God. I mean, that might be some of his best, that might be one of his best sentences in the entire Chronicles.
Yeah.
To explain the kind of love we should have for Jesus.
Yeah. Good choice. This next one is from The Magician's Nephew, and it's actually from the very first chapter.
Making fun of Diggory's name?
No.
Is that okay?
No. little bit away from that. This is when they are talking about the secret passageway. And Diggory said, I expect someone lives there in secret,
Oh, yes. Okay.
only
This is
coming
great.
in and out at night with a dark lantern. We shall probably discover a gang of desperate criminals and get a reward. It's all rot to say a house would be empty all those years unless there was some mystery. And then Polly's response is, Daddy thought it must be the drains. And Diggory's response, this is the part I actually selected. Pooh. Grown-ups are always thinking of uninteresting explanations, said Diggory. That is so... It's so Lewis, it's so Diggory. And it also is how I think a lot of people feel until you rediscover that love for fantasy fiction, science fiction, enjoying stories again. Because there is this period of, well, it's very serious. We got to understand how everything works. And I love that there's magic to that too for me.
Yeah.
But just letting your mind go a little bit and say like, oh, it could be this or it could be that. And then to have it be shot down with like some boring explanation. Oh, Daddy thought it must be the drains. I also love the use of the word poo. P-O-O-H here.
He's a big Winnie fan.
I was actually doing some research. I was trying to use ChatGPT to check for the context around this just to see what would come back. And it attributed this quote to, let me bring it up. It thought it was The House at Pooh Corner by A.A. Milne, from chapter 5 in which Piglet meets a Huffalump. It thought based on the word poo that
That's what they thought. They thought that's where the clue was from. Interesting. So many great things in Magician's Nephew. I love that. Well, then let's go to the final book here in the series. And again, I have one conversation here, and then I actually have as my. This is actually my favorite part of the last battle, is the final paragraph in the last battle, which I will obviously not read right now because the only chapter you haven't read is actually the last chapter at this point.
Right.
So
I meant to tell you, I've read the other one in preparation.
Oh, I know.
Recording.
Yeah.
So now I have one more, and then I will have finished for the first time ever the entire Chronicles
series.
of
So,
Narnia.
yeah.
I'm really looking forward to that.
So I thought this was kind of hilarious. There's one entire chapter of the Chronicles of Narnia that you haven't read, and that's what I picked one from. So I did, and this is actually why I went back and was like, oh, actually, I'm going to pick one of dialogue and one of the other because I wanted to be able to have this one but share something else. So I'm not going to read that very last chapter. I'm sure that listeners will hear me read it very soon in just 2 or 3 episodes when we get to this in chapter 16. But
give them one word.
And.
Oh, yeah.
The phrase that starts, and as he spoke.
That's going to be good, I can tell.
And then the very last, do you want to know the last word in the Chronicles?
In.
Before.
It ends with the word
No.
before?
The last word in all of the Chronicles is the word before.
Is there a dash?
Nope. Before, period.
Wow.
Interesting, right?
Huh.
Okay.
It's almost like he was playing a game of Battleship.
Let me read this actually pretty terrifying line that comes from Tyrion. I believe it's in chapter 2. Do you think I care if Aslan dooms me to death? Said the king. That would be nothing at all. Would it not be better to be dead than to have this horrible fear that Aslan had come, and it is not like the Aslan we have believed in and longed for. It is as if the sun rose one day and were a black sun. There's this great character work for Tyrion here, but just like going back to The Horse and His Boy, one of the really wonderful things is that it communicates to us actually what the right way to feel is. Lewis, especially for young readers reading these books, is able to almost perform that virtue, almost make it contagious from page to the reader, where it should be this horrible feeling, right? For if God were to come back and not be the God that we had believed in and longed for. I think one of the things Lewis is reminding us is to, one, even ask, who is the God that we believed in and longed for? Tyrion was in the right place, but one of the things that's often convicting for many of us, especially who are adults, actually, is how often do I make other things, my God? They're the things, what are the things, it's a very pretty basic Sunday school question, right? What are the things that you have a tendency to, misorder, right? That you put in front of God, that, this is actually what I'm believing and longing for more than God himself. And Tyrion gives us this example of, no, he actually was longing for the right Aslan, right? And it's something that we can be thinking about, right? I mean, I remember this is like a thing. You and I went to college together, so maybe we were in some of these same conversations. But many of the small groups, like around freshman year, they'd break off and do the male gender splits or whatever, and the guys would share things. I remember one guy once sharing. This is years ago, so I think it's okay to say it here. Someone was like, it's not that I don't want God to come back, but I really would like to be married first. If he could just wait till I'm married, that'd be wonderful. And there's 3 other guys oh yeah, me too. And I think the thing that's funny, everyone's being a little facetious during this time, but I think the thing is that many of us do have I'd like God, in this very end times that we see in the last battle, we think, I want God to return, but kind of on my terms, or I want God's will to be done. But again, I want God's will to be done on my terms.
Yep.
And what Tyrion exemplifies for us is what it actually looks like to say, I want God's will to be done, period. Right? And so I love this line from him.
Yeah, and also in that example you gave, it just reminds me that I don't think we fully understand how wonderful our future with the Lord will be, because we're still trying to get in a few good things before we do that. It's going to be incredible. Yeah.
All right. Well, now I'm going to go ahead and read the final paragraph. Not right now for you and I, but I will put it in right there because I think that's a great segue to what you just said.
Okay.
Their hearts leapt, and a wild hope rose within them. There was a real railway accident, said Aslan softly. Your father and mother and all of you are, as you used to call it in the Shadowlands, dead. The term is over. The holidays have begun. The dream is ended. This is the morning. And as he spoke, he no longer looked to them like a lion. But the things that began to happen after that were so great and beautiful that I cannot write them. And for us, this is the end of all the stories, and we can most truly say that they all lived happily ever after. But for them, it was only the beginning of the real story. All their life in this world and all their adventures in Narnia had only been the cover and the title page. Now at last they were beginning chapter 1 of the great story which no one on earth has read, which goes on forever, in which every chapter is better than the one before.
So I can't listen to this one.
Well, the listeners have already heard it at this point. So there you have it. That is the end of the Chronicles of Narnia. And I think all of these, through these 7 books, have, I hope for our listeners, exemplified why we keep coming back to Lewis. So many different, diverse uses of grammar and prose and phrases, and then imagery and metaphor, all of these different things. Lewis understood this language so well. And it comes through in even his books meant to be read by kids who are still in their single digits.
Yeah.
What a blessing and joy it is that we can hand a book like Wardrobe to a 7 or 8 year old and be like, this is prose that a highly educated grown grandfather or grandmother or great would be able to enjoy, and you can actually enjoy it as well too as an 7
adult.
or 8 year old.
Well, yeah.
I know what you mean. Both ways. Like it's enjoyed from the 5-year-old to the 95-year-old, and that takes a lot of talent.
Yeah, a lot of skill, a lot of work.
Well, Phil, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Happy C.S. Lewis reading day.
Happy C.S. Lewis reading day. Why don't you go ahead and end the episode for us, Phil?
This episode is made possible by our patrons over at patreon.com. If you'd like to support the show, you too can listen to a bonus episode each month, along with other rewards. Special thanks goes
Wait, are you saying that you too can listen to a bonus episode?
This is a message
like Bono
specifically for
he
Bono.
Can come in. What's Blade? What's the other guy's name?
No.
What's the guitar player? Edge. I caught him Blade.
You're thinking of the Wesley Snipes.
Yeah, Wesley Snipes superhero.
You know who's gonna play Blade next?
No, I don't.
It's the guy
it's
the guy from House of Cards.
Oh, that could be so many people.
I'm blanking on his name.
I've never seen House of Cards. I've seen one episode.
Mahershala.
Oh, Mahershala Ali.
Mahershala Ali. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
And it's going to be in the MCU. Pretty cool. Well, we'll see. It used to be that was a guarantee, but we'll see. Okay. Special thanks goes to John Marr, Emily Wakefield, Ryan Smith, Ashland Washburn, and Andrew Trophy, and Bono and Edge for supporting us at our top tiers.
Don't forget Slash there too.
Slash. Maybe we should do a residency in Las Vegas.
You think so?
Yeah. Adele's doing it. U2's doing it. I think the Lamppost listener is next.
We'll just go to...
We'll just show up. We'll be on the outskirts of the strip.
Yeah.
We'll be in a hotel room. That's our residency.
I still don't know how to pronounce the name of the state, so...
Nevada?
I don't know.
Yeah. I think Nevada is the killing curse from Harry Potter.
Oh, that's what they kept saying. Nevada.
Yeah.
Listeners from the state where Las Vegas is, let us know. How are we saying? Which one of us?
Wouldn't it be Las Vegas?
Nevada. Oh, the thing with this is just like Ramandu or Ramandu. I think with Nevada,
I think if you add onions, it's Ramandu.
Nevada, I say both of them. I don't know what. Like I switch back and forth.
That's how I handle certain names that I don't know how to say. I just alternate. It's A/B testing. See which one you feeling.
Well, yeah,
you can fix it in post. This is a reward this is a built-in bonus for anyone who's listening.
Who listens in
after I say this episode is made possible, because I think some people
click ahead,
pan ahead.
I do that on other podcasts.
That's why this is only for the people who maybe are washing dishes and their hands are wet and they can't.
I can't do. I'm stuck with these guys.
I gotta listen to this. We should just. Have you ever wanted a vegetable sent to you in the mail? Sign up for one of the many duplicate. Mail you 4 meals in a box with a freezer pack.
Please finish the episode, Phil.
You can email us at thenarniapodcast@gmail.com.
And actually soon, these people will find out before most people do, you can actually start mailing us. I went and got our P.O. box set up.
We have real bona fide P.O. box.
Yeah, turns out for a couple of things we needed to do for the podcast, they wanted me to put my address in it. I was like, I don't feel good about that.
I've wanted a P.O. box for years because people have offered to mail us stuff. We just didn't want to give out our actual addresses.
Fair enough.
And now I'm real excited that we can now receive physical letters.
So I went, this is kind of funny. I went to go get the P.O. box yesterday, and it's at the the biggest branch here in the city in Richmond. And I go in, it's a little, it's the post office, so it took a little bit of time. I go in and get it. They give me the key. I go in, and I kid you not, the box, I open it up. It is full of mail.
Whoa.
And I'm talking like medical bills.
Oh.
Like one was for like recent stuff. But then there was also like a bunch of junk. But I was like, if it had just been like junk, I would have thrown it all away. But I was like, I don't know, like maybe someone needs this. So I go back, and we had to go through this whole like hullabaloo of figuring out that actually the thing was closed, but they had put the wrong person's stuff in just the one next to it, which does make me a little worried of like, well, am I going to get the mail that we want to get here if you guys are having trouble with that? But
maybe we should sign up for one of the other services. We'll see.
But this is what other services?
You can do a UPS one.
Oh, really?
And then you just go to a UPS place and it acts as a mailbox where any mail sent to the UPS place is then sorted and then.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah.
that. I thought you had to do like a PO box.
Yeah.
They also, what's great is they'll do, which this is one of the reasons I liked it, is we have a really small, box, but they'll hold any package we get for 10 days, no
That's
matter
cool.
the size. So that, and they don't charge us extra or anything. So I thought that was a pretty good thing. So we can kind of pay the minimum amount for a small little box. It holds a ton of letters, but not much more than letters. But any package we get, I just have to go buy within 10 days, and it's not far from where I work, so it's not bad.
Yeah, that's cool. The only thing I knew about PO boxes is that when I was eating my cereal every morning, I would want to send away for a toy, and they said no PO boxes. So that's out. We'll have to have that sent to our house.
All right, we do need to finish this.
So I made it halfway through the email part. You can leave us a voicemail at 406-646-6733, and previous episodes, links, and book information can be found at lamppostlistener.com. All one word.
Should be by this date. The new website is up, so go check it out.
Yeah, now you got some pressure to make sure you actually do that. It looks really good so far, and I'm excited for it to launch.
Yeah.
It'll probably be ready. Review on Apple Podcasts would also be appreciated. Thank you for coming along on this journey, and we will be back next time with Chapter 15.